What's up, homie G's? Welcome back to the channel. So Bitcoin topping like 62, 63,000 today. You guys have seen me talk about this a lot on the channel like previous years. You know, I'm a huge sound money advocate. Huge. Gold and silver broker. Do that as like a part-time side hustle because I just believe in sound currency, like sound money. It's differentiate between currency and money. Currency is something that we circulate, has a current to it, has a beat to it, has velocity. Money is a store of value that transcends time. Doesn't matter if it's today or 10 years from today. It should have, if it's money, the same or increased purchasing power. The reason that it would be increased purchasing power is because technology has lowered the cost of goods and services, which at this point in time, we don't easily see this unless you're willing to go back in the data and look at things. Perfect example of this, an ounce of gold. I've had a lot of videos on this channel about this and on my other channel, Light Capital. I'll link to it. I need to start reposting up on there. I'm just trying to figure out where I want to go in that space, like, because it's just important. My background was finance. I studied finance and economics and did some stuff in Washington, D.C. And then I've always been doing landscape and land clearing stuff since literally the first thing I ever did, as far as like work goes. Like, started my own lawns at 12, built and sold a company at 18, lawn company, went to college, built 4 more. So today Bitcoin's topping 60 something thousand, and this is really interesting because I've been on a group chat with my buddies, and I've been trying to solve this problem for quite a while now. I want to, one, put Bitcoin on the side of our trucks. I want to align with that brand. I think it's just good. I just think it's like, oh, what's that about? It strikes up conversations. It's kind of like how we have food to, or trees to food in our messaging. It's kind of like the same exact thing in a way, where it's like, well, what's that about? And it's like, well, we're taking chips and we're composting them and we're turning it into food. And ideally, at some point, it'll be in the local grocery store here, because we've got a great grocer. They have 6 locations, and I really want to get in there at some point in time. But with Bitcoin, it's a sound money. It's an easy currency for people to interact with. You can literally buy $1 of it. Can't do that with silver and gold. You know, like myself, I won't even deal with silver orders under 2,500. I'll just tell them like, hey, go check out, JM Bullion. I've thought about doing a subscription service where, people can just dollar cost average in, but it's physical. You got to ship it. There's shipping costs. There's, all those type of things. What I love about it is it's a commodity money, so that it can't be printed. And as they do print it, it just inflates its value. So, but it maintains the same value. Earlier point, an ounce of gold will and has for hundreds of years now buy you a quality handmade suit. That's the best example that people always give when they talk about the purchasing power of gold, because that human labor hasn't really changed much. You're sewing machines and there's other things like that, but the cost of making a suit, a well-tailored suit, I'm talking like spiffy. And there's actually a place, I believe it's in India, where that's how they price. They literally have the 1 gold suit, the 1 ounce gold suit. It's pretty neat. But it'll buy you the same amount of gasoline, buy you the same amount of diesel fuel. If you go back and test it, it'll buy you the same amount of beef. If you go back and test it, like 1 ounce of gold will typically buy a cow ready for harvest. So, it'll buy you, silver will buy you a chicken. And you get on Facebook Marketplace, look at the spot price of silver, look at the price of a laying hen. They're gonna be about identical, like within $1 or $2 range. So they've correlated well. Bitcoin is this new asset which really works on something I learned this week, which is after the ledger of Matthew Patton. This is a Revolutionary War type of guy, that era, 1700s, and he is famous for having excellent ledger systems. And we can actually go back and look at his dealings and like who he owed money to, who owed money to him, when they paid, how they paid, what they paid. It's one of the first records we have on these things, which is really interesting because that's essentially what Bitcoin is. There's no underlying value of Bitcoin, the exception of it's expensive to mine, and it becomes more and more expensive to mine the harder you go. Example of this is my roommates in 2011 were mining this on Dell work laptop computers. I shared a desk with one of my roommates, and I remember the night I walked in there, I was about to move his laptop. Whoa, bro, don't touch that. It's mining right now. And I was like, okay. He's like, don't touch it. Just let it be. And so anyway, he mined several Bitcoins on a little Dell 2010, 2011 laptop, and put them in a cold wallet, and that was it. Like he's got his Bitcoins from that way. You can't really do that anymore. You can't certainly mine as many as he mined with that one laptop on the energy used. So it's a harder to get currency as we go, but really it's a barter currency because the underlying value of it is in the ledger system. And it's new and no one's really built anything off of it. There's some stuff on it. We saw like the scams, we saw the Sam Bankman frauds, and we saw all that type of stuff occur. We've seen actually 2 different bubbles of Bitcoin, maybe in a bubble right now. I kind of feel like it's gonna double top myself. That's just my opinion. Gold did, I don't see why Bitcoin won't. A lot of euphoria around it right now. I'm excited about it. That typically tells me probably overpumped, probably overhyped. It's also gone pretty much straight up for the last 4 weeks. But what I'm interested in doing is I want to align as a Bitcoin company. And so that I can pitch people, because I'm a sound money guy, I really want to just go to people and just say, well, you've got the blood dollar, which requires hundreds of thousands of human lives to be sacrificed every single year to keep this thing continuing to inflate, which means like they're pulling value from the future into the now. This is very true. This is why we have wars and expanding wars, and we always will, as long as we have fiat currency, is because you need it, actually. You can't not have it and have fiat currency, because the second the currency does not expand, there is no reverse gear. It literally collapses. So if we were not able to issue $1 more of debt into the U.S. currency, like into the U.S. economy, $1 more of debt, the whole thing would implode. People wouldn't pay their house payments, they wouldn't pay their truck payments, they wouldn't pay their, some people are buying credit card, food. I mean, the whole thing would unwind. All the derivatives would unwind, all the bonds would go to zero, everything would go to hell. And so it always has to inflate. And so the cause or the issue of it, that inflation, is that it creates a have and have not society. For example, I own real estate. All right, well, my real estate has more than doubled in price in the last like 18 months. And then it doubled before that. So I'm on like my second or third double right now. Another 3 or 4 years, probably done double again. So it's like, well, that's great if you're an asset holder. But if you're not, or you're coming up, or like, what do you do? What do you do with your savings? I think Bitcoin is solving this problem by allocating property rights to people at the very minimal scale. I mean, at the $5 level, you can own property, and that property theoretically cannot be inflated away. Now later, if they start doing loans on top of Bitcoin and expanding the money supply, which is years away from here, then you could theoretically have an issue again, like over a long period of time. The US money supply expansion was fine up until like from 1913 to 2013, it worked fine. So for like 100 years, it'll work fine. But when you get to the last 10 years, it's gotten pretty noticeable. When you get to the next 10 years, it'll be obvious. When you get to the 10 years after that, it'll be done, in my opinion. It'll be like, yo, that game was over. And then, because it's very easy, I can pitch to you guys on YouTube here and go, which one would you rather hold for a 5-year period? Bitcoin or dollars? Back test it. Name me any year. Go back. Okay, the answer's been Bitcoin, right? But the downside to that is, well, then your capital's not working. It's not improving the lives of human beings. It's literally the best move to do is to hoard your currency, which is not great. Like what I do with my fiat dollars is I invest them. I buy Bobcats with them. I buy things that help serve other people, that make my services better and like more valuable to people. And therefore I offer more at a better rate. And so the economy goes up, like things move forward. And this basically enables us to like have a falling, like technology has price, goods and services falling in price. Like the technology I have, which is pretty basic, Bobcat tractor stuff, is better than the stuff I had 10 years ago. And it's better than the stuff they had 20 years ago. And so it enables us to do better tree services at a better rate than we could have done 30 years ago, like hands down. And so technology makes that better, software, etc., etc. But what I'm trying to figure out is how I could align with Bitcoin, charge for our services in Bitcoin, and it be exclusively Bitcoin. My issue I have with my buddies in my group chat is I'm like, yo, it's a derivative of the dollar. That's what I hate about it. Is like, oh, well, how much is this in Bitcoin? Well, you go back to the dollar price. Well, no, I want to price it in like 1 Bitcoin, 2 Bitcoin, 3 Bitcoin. And so my buddies are coming back to me saying, you need to sell a really expensive product that you could it probably needs to be an expensive product. I push back and I'm like, well, then if we can't sell candy bars in Bitcoin or smoothies in Bitcoin, then that really throws a wrench in the whole plan. But I understand it's early days, and I've been talking with these guys literally since 2011, and I think the first time I was introduced to Bitcoin was with this group of dudes that I maintain a group chat with in 2011. I remember one of my buddies traded a Bitcoin for a beer, and I was like, whoa, that doesn't make any sense, bro. And he's like, well, it's $3. You just buy another one. It's not a big deal. I'm like, no, it's a big deal because there's only 21 million of them, so you can't be just trading a Bitcoin for a beer. And at the time, I was like, maybe I've got the Bitcoin thing wrong. Maybe it's more like what Venmo is now. Maybe you load up money on this side and then you spend it on that side. But it turned out that the store value wasn't the fiat dollar that it represented, but the actual coin itself, because there's only 21 million of them. So in a way, I was right. And this is how later I realized, like, I think speculation is kind of one of my things, like, because I saw that like misalignment, and my big mistake there wasn't just backing the bus up. I mean, to the point of grabbing like 10,000 Bitcoins and then like, no, you're wrong, I'm right, my 30 grand's on the table, let's find out. And back then I didn't understand about trading and scaling in, scaling out. What I would have done now is what I do now is a Doug Casey free ride. All the Bitcoin I have has been free. All my Bitcoin's been free. Because I buy it, it doubles in price, I sell half. It's free. That's it. So that's the thing. That's what I've been doing. I do that with stocks, I do that with silver, I do that with gold. I buy it, doubles, I sell it. I haven't sold any gold. Actually, I have. Yep, I've traded out gold. Actually, I bought things with gold, purchased things in gold. So what I'm trying to get at is I would love to figure out how to align with Bitcoin, utilize it as a medium of exchange, and start to preach with what we do in business to tell people get off the blood dollar. Like this is like Aztec level insanity of how many human beings are sacrificed annually to keep this freaking wars and expanding wars and the wealth gap and people impoverished, people in debt, people slave to the system. I want that to go away. I want that gone. And the easiest, most peaceful way I think that this could occur, I think it'll start peacefully, I think it'll end like everything else, violently. And then the winners will write the history, and that's how you get the map. If you ever looked at a map, all those lines you see on a map are drawn in blood. There's no line on there not drawn in blood. Look at that Mexico border. It used to go all the way to Colorado. Not anymore, because blood was spilled, and now that's America. And then, so was America. So I'm trying to figure this out. I would love your guys' opinion down in the comments. What do you guys think about this? One issue I have with it is it's fully tracked. So you guys could get a wallet address of ours and see every transaction, which I think could kind of be all right, because if I wanted to go sell equity, like my plan is to sell the company at some point. If I wanted to sell equity or have proof of transactions, I could just say, here are my transactions. Like here are all the things that this company's done. Time, date, stamps, all that stuff, which I think is great. If at some point in time history repeats, like 1933, when they banned the private ownership of gold, they stole everyone's gold and shut the banks down for 5 years, caused people to go into an epic depression. Bitcoin's not great for like, hey man, we know you're hiding your Bitcoin. Now all the Bitcoin people will be like, bro, you can't take it from me. The keywords are in my head, so you can't steal it from me. It's like, no, but they can take your kids. They're doing that all over. I mean, the blue states are definitely taking your kids. And you imagine being like, a divorced father in a single state, or in a, like a single dad, a divorced father co-parenting in a blue state with a lib mom. Dude, she's gonna try to trans your kids and stuff, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, ooh, that's the part where peace needs to yield to the sword, in my opinion. But like at this point, it's like, well, how do we get a wealth transfer from the elites? Or just like, how do we even it up more without doing some crazy Julius Caesar socialist practices? Because that's what he did. Is he came in and he looked at the Bill Gates of the time and he was like, guess what, Gates? All that farmland you got, off with your head. We're dividing it out. And that's why people love Caesar, because Rome was getting to that spot where the coin clipping and all the things that were going on were starting to get pretty gnarly, and it was starting to get pretty crazy. And they had 3 civil wars, and Julius Caesar won his. And Caesar was basically in the Trump, he was in the Trump spot where they were like, hey, show up for trial. Come back to Rome for your trial. And he was like, nah. And then we're like, well, then we're going to arrest you. And like all his boys, which are basically Navy SEALs, like Legion guys, were like, all right, let's do this. And they won. And they killed him later. that his family ran Rome for 100 years, and Rome actually was in a decline. It came out, was very prosperous for 100 years, and it actually went another 400 years before the barbarians just put the nail in the coffin. So, you know, it got 1,000 years, and it basically worked. Bitcoin can do this, in my opinion, because like if you look at my property, I gave this example earlier in the video, if you look at this real estate like portfolio, right? So you got real estate there. Well, my real estate has been crushed by Bitcoin in the last 4 years. In fiat terms, it's doubled and then it doubled again. But in Bitcoin terms, I could have sold one property for, let's see, I bought the property and I bought it for 35 Bitcoins. I could sell the property for less than 20 right now. So I'm down like 50%. Yeah, a little bit, yeah, about 50%, probably like 16 Bitcoins. So what's happening there is it would have been better. I mean, either one worked, right? Like if I want to be in the fiat system, okay, cool, doubled up money via real estate. What's cool is I can loan against it. Go grab a mortgage. I could take $1 million out of real estate, have a mortgage, pay no taxes, put a renter in it, let the renter pay the mortgage, pocket my $1 million, move on to the next thing. The downside is that $1 million won't buy me the same amount of Bitcoins that it cost to buy the property in the first place, like 6 years ago. So in a way, this is a way that we could essentially redistribute the wealth, where we could say, oh, look at these boomers, they have $2 million properties. And the way that we could play it would be like, all right, you save in Bitcoin and then you buy things in it later at a higher rate. So anyway, I've got thoughts on that. I don't love the trackability of it, but in the purposes of running a business entity, having shareholders, telling guys like, here's our transactions, you can see them live time, that's cool. At some point in time, I'm worried about the 1933 gold confiscation. I think that it's inevitable. So what makes Bitcoin nicer than silver and gold is you can bounce with it. You know, like if you're like, yo, like I'm pretty out on the idea of like America at this point in time. I don't really have a lot of like, I love Florida, don't get me wrong, like, you know, my buddy Jeff, look at that monster truck, like it's called the American Pride truck. It's so funny, it's all Americaned up. But like, you know, like, and Jeff's Gen X guy, and he freaking loves America, man. But like, to me, I'm just pretty disingenuous with it, where I'm like, it's pretty fake and gay. I mean, to be honest with you, like Argentina looks cool, Colombia looks cool, Mexico looks cool, Eastern Europe, like Serbia looks cool. Like there's lots of places that I'm like, I mean, I like Florida. Florida's really great right now, but like, there are other places in the world that are not so draconian, and also a year or two from now, I don't know, things might be wild. Like we'll see how the selection goes in November, and like we'll see that stuff. So anyway, I want your guys' comments down in the bottom. Let me know what you guys think about this, how I could possibly do this. I've got some ideas. I'll hit a second video when I leave here on it, post it right after this one, I'll link to it, and we'll go from there. Peace.